Erik Horne here with my esteemed colleagues, Jason Reid, senior NFL writer for Andscape, Bill Rhoden, columnist for Andscape, and Jean-Jacques Taylor, on the ground in Dallas, president of JJT Media Group. Guys, feels like we've been talking about Micah Parsons for a few weeks now, and we didn't think it would get to this point. But yesterday, Thursday, it got to this point. Micah Parsons traded. Micah Parsons, one of the best defensive players in the league, traded to the Green Bay Packers for 2 first-round picks and Kenny Clark. Am I correct? Am I missing anything there?
Nah, that's it.
That's it. Yeah.
That's it. That's the key. But I would like to quote the man of the hour, Jerry Jones, who in his incredible press conference Thursday night said, quote, "This was a move to get us successful in the playoffs." Guys,
you got to get to the playoffs first.
That's exactly what I was going to say, JJT. You nailed it. You nailed it, man. You nailed it. You got to get there first.
They don't look like a playoff team to me.
The Cowboys were 7-10 with Micah Parsons last year and his 12 sacks, which we're going up to Green Bay. Gentlemen, what do we make of this? How did we get here? And I know this is going to be a great conversation because we got Jason Reid, our resident cowboy in attire, in aura.
Right.
We got JJT on the ground in Dallas, who has covered the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones' shenanigans for quite some time. And we have Bill Rhoden, who is enamored with the notion of and an expert of the notion of players getting what is due them. JJT, can we start with you since you are in Dallas and you are feeling all of this around you? How did we get here, man? What is going on?
It's really real simple when you really understand it. It's really simple. As many things, it came to an economic deal, but it also came to the fact that Jerry has circumvented this process many times where he talks to the players and then basically tries to get a deal done and then to have the player either sign off on it or take it to their agent. And if you just look at the economics of the deal, it's kind of nuanced in terms of Jerry believed he had, and here's the key, Jerry believed he had a handshake agreement with Micah Parsons, 5 years, $200 million. Micah ends up signing in Green Bay for 4 years and $188 million, which is $47 million a year instead of 40. But the nuanced part of the conversation to me is this. If you look at the recent deals over the last 2 or 3 years, nobody is signing 5-year deals. Players want to get to the negotiating table as soon as possible. So as soon as David Mulligetta looks at this deal, he goes, "Hey, bro, we ain't signing no 5-year deal. We're trying to get back to the table." And the nuanced part of it is, on a 4-year deal, when do you start negotiating a new deal? In year 3. In year 3, Micah Parsons will be what? 29 years old. If he signs a 4-year deal, 5-year deal, when the negotiations start, I'm 30, I'm 31. That's a big difference in terms of how much money you can command because it's a young man's game. You start negotiating at 29, that adds value to your deal. And that to me was the biggest hang up. And when they called him back earlier this week and said, "Hey, Jerry, let's talk," Cowboys told him, "Hey, play on the 5th year or we'll trade you."
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I'm just curious to hear. I've got obviously my thoughts, but Jay Reid, I'm just curious, and you got the cowboy hat. I'm just curious to get your reaction to this because I'm sure we're all stunned, but I'm wondering, you're like a hardened NFL, expert. I'm just curious to get your take, man. Were you stunned by this?
Well, I had said in our group chat that I would believe it when Mulligetta got permission to go shop deals, because typically that's the way it works in the NFL now. Is that these owners, they give agents the right to go out and look for deals, and it wasn't known publicly yesterday when we were texting whether or not Mulligetta had gotten permission to go shop the deals. And I went out to go throw some burgers on the grill. Keep it with my Dallas theme, and I come back to all these texts from JJT and you guys about the fact that the deal had gone down. So what I did was I started texting some people around the league, and I talked to a few people, or I texted with a few people, and I actually got on the phone with a former Super Bowl winning general manager, and he just went off about it. And I'm kind of previewing a column that I've got running for Andscape later today. I think if my editor is if my editor's had a chance to work on it.
Posting as we speak.
Okay, but what he said, Bill, was that, I mean, look, this guy is, in his opinion, the best defensive player in the league. He's 26 years old. Like, you can't get enough value back, because, I mean, really, the value you're talking about for Micah Parsons is really 4-1s. I mean, no team is going to give the Cowboys 4-1s for him, because they're just not going to do that. But when you look at his career arc right now, Reggie White, Derek Thomas, Dwight Freeney, those are the only other players who have had double-digit sacks their first 4 years in the league. You know where all those guys are? In Canton. So when you talk about a transcendent player in terms of off of the edge, two most important positions in football are quarterback and edge rusher. That's it. You can talk about left tackle, you can talk about cover corner, but in the modern NFL, in the NFL in 2025, it's quarterback and edge rusher. And you have a guy who is 26 years old, four-time Pro Bowler, three-time All-Pro, defensive AP Rookie of the Year, a guy who has finished in the top three in the Defensive Player of the Year voting 2 years. I mean, you don't trade someone like this. And as I was saying, the general manager was telling me, from the Packers standpoint, okay, the Packers draft very well, and they make the playoffs. So it's really not true, two true elite ones. You didn't trade him to the Jets or the Carolina Panthers. No offense to the
Right,
Jets or the Carolina Panthers.
right.
You
No,
traded
that's
him to
definitive.
you traded him to a team that is usually in the playoffs. So you're really looking at closer to two high twos
And broke
than
Dallas's heart. Remember the team,
yeah.
the Green Bay team that broke Dallas's heart in the playoffs.
So to wrap it up, around the league, Bill, it's just like, well, this is more of what the Cowboys have done for such a long long time now. And like I said, this general manager I talked to, he is just like, from the Packers standpoint, you run to the table to make that deal.
Right,
You don't,
right.
and they gave him a 4-year contract, which guarantees him the most money of a non-quarterback in NFL history. So it tells you what the Packers think of him too.
Yeah. I mean, like Erik was saying, so I filter all this stuff through the prism of a power dynamic, and I'm thinking of Kurt Flood's book, A Well-Paid Slave. Kurt Flood's book was about fight free agency, and my own thing about the $40 million slave with having money with no power, and I'm thinking, I don't know how you guys feel, but I remember waking up when Luka Doncic, also in Dallas, was traded like overnight for Anthony Davis. And we were stunned. Now, I don't know if you guys were as stunned by that trade as you were for that. That's my first question to you guys. That's the first thing I thought of. I thought of this whole idea of athletes, no matter how well you're paid, and particularly an old school like Jerry Jones. Remember, there was the famous story of Vince Lombardi negotiating back in the 60s with a player. I want to say Forrest Gregg, it may not have been. And Forrest Gregg, they were sitting in Lombardi's office, and Forrest Gregg wanted a certain number, and Lombardi left the office and came back, said, "Okay, you're now a member of the Cleveland Browns." And that's kind of what this smacks of with Jerry saying, "You know what, this is the number. You know what, and I'm trading you." And Green Bay used to be one of those places where players would be threatened. We're going to send you to Green Bay. So I don't know. I guess I have more questions for you guys. Were you as stunned by this? And is this the same cathedral as Luka for Anthony Davis, or was this different? That
Now,
was my thought.
Luka was more stunning because it came completely out of left field. The thing about this is, and I've said this on a couple of different platforms, the rhetoric that Jerry and Michael were using is usually reserved for earlier in the offseason, leading up to getting a deal done. is not reserved for like right before the season starts. And so I started thinking that it feels like he's going to miss the first game. And then, if the defense plays well, okay, I'll come back. But if the defense stinks, well, then you got to pay me. Much like the Emmitt Smith move in 1993. That's what it felt like to me. And then, as you start just getting more and more trickles about trading, you're just like, well, they wouldn't really trade him, would they? But the fact that it was out there lessened some of the it wasn't like Luka where it just came completely out of left field.
Yeah. Does this help? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, to me, Luka was more stunning to me because from an NBA versus NFL standpoint, having covered the NBA, now I can speak to this. It's when you get that guy in the NBA, you hold on to that guy. And Luka, to me, was unquestionably one of those guys. He took him to a finals, a year prior. So it wasn't as surprising to me because in football, when guys get traded, there's a moment of shock, but you typically kind of move quickly on to the next thing. But typically, an NFL team to me isn't dictated by one player. Now, that one player might be incredible who gets traded, but it's not dictated by him. The Cowboys are still going to they're not going to make the playoffs.
Right.
But if you trade your star in the NBA, you're cooked. Like the Cowboys still have a chance to win some football games. When the NBA team trades their LeBron, they're going straight to the top 5. Right. So to me, I think that the Luka trade was more stunning, but that doesn't mean that the Micah Parsons trade isn't stunning in itself. I'm just used to seeing these deals get done.
The boys ain't winning more than 6 games this year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that would be one less than last year, and they had Micah Parsons. So that to me is maybe what Jerry Jones is looking at. Like, hey, maybe we can survive this. Now, is it the right thing? I don't think it is, but that's probably how he's looking at it as we can survive this despite the fact that this guy is all world.
And that was floated out there. And what happens is a trade for Garrett out of Cleveland has been sort of floated, because Jerry threatens, I'm not done yet. So what would happen if they would make another trade and bring Garrett there? Then all of a sudden we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. Micah Parsons would be old news if Garrett ended up in Dallas, But then to your point, Erik, I know what you're saying about Luka. To me, it's almost just a power dynamic, dealing with these guys, and maybe it's not sort of a racial tone so much, but it's just in the NFL sports period, they were telling Luka Doncic and Anthony, I don't care who you are, I'm still the owner of this team. I'll trade you anywhere. I don't care who you are. And Micah Parsons is only 26 years old. I mean, this guy is like in the prime of his career. I'm just wondering again. It's another question. Does this hurt Mike? Because you're now going from Dallas, Texas, indoor stadium to Green Bay, and what's it going to look like come November, December? Is this going to hurt Parsons' production?
No, he played in Happy Valley, so he's from Penn State.
Right.
And according to a report I read last night, the Packers were one of 4 teams he wanted to go play for.
Okay.
He said, matter of fact, now the quote I read said, "Happy Valley Green Bay reminds me of Happy Valley." So, I think he's cool with that.
I want to go back to Bill's question. Like, I hear you guys in terms of the Luka thing because that did come out of left field. And I don't know what's in the water in Dallas where they're trading these, young transcendent players. But I will say that for me, and JJT has covered the team. He lives there, so he's got a much better feel for it. But for me, I just coming from an NFL standpoint, everything you guys said is true. It's different. It's one player who's a superstar among 5 players is much different than one player who's a superstar among 22 players.
Right.
But for me, the reason this is more shocking for me, and I'm looking at it from my lens covering the NFL, quarterback, edge rusher. Every coach you talk with, every executive you talk with, every scout you talk with tells you that in the NFL today, if you don't have an elite quarterback and you don't have at least one elite guy off the edge, it's almost like anything else you do is it's not going to matter as much.
Right.
So when you look at this guy, being 26, all the accolades, and the thing is, you can line him up almost anywhere. Like
Right.
it's not like he's one of these guys who has to have his hand down or can only generate pressure if it's one-on-one and he's not double teamed. Like Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, Chris Jones. There are certain guys who the reason the Kansas City Chiefs broke what they normally do and gave Chris Jones the money, even though he still had time on the deal, was because they understood that this guy is such a difference maker in a sport where there are not that many difference makers.
Right.
You can't let
Right.
him go.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, Luka was more shocking from a I guess just a general sports standpoint, but from an NFL roster construction standpoint, I'm still stunned they did this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, as I'm debating the question, I'm thinking, so many thoughts, man, all of us, I'm thinking about Luka. You also have this white star, a white star who was treated like a black man, trade just, woken up out of his sleep and traded. I'm also wondering again if I guess if I'm in the NFC North, I'm like, damn, if I'm like Detroit, Minnesota, I'm like, oh man, are you kidding me? Come on, Jerry, you're killing me.
Right.
And meanwhile, if you're in the NFC East, you're like, man, this is fantastic. This is a great day.
Right.
I don't. Right. Jalen Hurts doesn't have to worry about Micah Parsons breathing down his neck. Jackson Dart's like, cool. When I get thrown in there, I'm not going to get killed. Awesome.
Jaden Daniels.
Right. Exactly. Thank you, Jesus. The other thing too, I was thinking of, and I just lost my train of thought about Parsons being traded. Oh man, it's something about the competitive advantage. But I'll defer to one of you guys to
well, they
talk.
play the game of the year will be when they play the Cowboys at AT&T Stadium a month into the season on Sunday Night Football. With the Cowboys having a big old question mark at left tackle, whether it's Tyler Guyton, who's been a bust thus far as a first-round pick, or Nate Thomas, who was a seventh-round pick. Either one of them lining up across from a motivated, even more so than usual, Micah Parsons.
JJT, do you think Jerry gets booed that night?
No.
Okay.
Because, here's the deal. There's been I've said this about Micah many times, and the reason I thought the reason why I thought he would sit out a game, is that Micah's a free spirit. Micah's not your sit over here and shut up player. Matter of fact, I had on a podcast last night, I was arguing with a guy who I do a podcast with. He's like, Micah gets on my nerves. He's too sensitive. Micah is a kid of this generation, man. And that's how some of them are. He grew up on social media. Yeah, they're just a different kind of cat. And so so what I'm saying is there's been a lot of talk about within the walls of the Star, the training facility, that, well, Micah's a 7-letter cuss word. Micah's always got some drama. Micah's always got some beef. Some of his teammates were mad at him about his podcast last year. So he's always got some drama going on. And there's a segment of the fan base like, fine, get rid of him, go, bye, be gone, until he come back and bust you upside the head a couple times. And much like Jay Reid said, the Packers have drafted in the 20s 5 of the last 6 years. Now, again, let's have a nuanced conversation, and Jay Reid knows this for a fact. Most NFL GMs will tell you in any draft, there are what? 14 to 18 first-round picks.
Like tops, yeah.
True talent in terms of, like, you are a first-round talent. So you ain't really even getting first-round picks for Micah Parsons.
I'm sorry. The point that I was thinking of you're talking about, does Jerry get booed or not? Jerry doesn't care. In other words, this is almost better. Like we're talking competitively. You think he doesn't care?
No,
Jerry
he does not.
wins. Jerry, with if you saw the America's Team doc, it's about entertainment. It's about entertainment value. That this is all good. We're talking about it. This franchise, they haven't won a championship since the time. He doesn't care. He does not care. He can trade the entire front four to like Oshkosh, and get something in return and put him out there. He knows fans are going to come, they're going to cheer or boo or whatever, and that's really all that matters. So I think there are two conversations: competitively for the Dallas Cowboys versus the business of the Dallas Cowboys. And I think Jerry is focused in on the business of Jericho. And thank you, Micah Parsons, because you are part. You increased my business my business value. So, I think Jerry wins, and that's his business model. Jerry wins.
It was I'm glad you brought that up, Bill, because I was going to bring it up too. I don't know if everyone out there has seen the America's Team documentary on Netflix. I've only watched one episode so far, but the one episode that I watched, what was fascinating to me was Jerry's tone in that initial press conference when he bought the team and he came in, and the way he talked to the Dallas media and the way he's talking now, almost 40 years later, I did not see a lot of difference. It's like this guy, it's almost like he hasn't learned. It's like he still has the same principles from 40 years ago that he has now, that he's more concerned with the show and the entertainment of it. And it's almost like the championships are secondary. And he just happened to happen across these. And I don't want to dismiss it that much that he happened across the championships. That Cowboys team in the early 90s was incredible. I mean, we all watched it. Some of us were there. I wasn't there. I watched it. But it just struck me how much yesterday and 40 years ago almost sounded so similar in some of the ways he was talking about football. And I was like, man, this dude is really running this thing the same way. That's got to be really frustrating to some of the people who really love this team, the players and the people in the building.
It's an interesting statement because, the problem with it is it sounds like, well, Jerry's running the team into a ground. They just went 12-5 3 years in a row. They have a 151-98 record over the last 20 years. So it's not like, from a regular season standpoint, they're the Jets or there's some raggedy Rudy franchise. Right. What has happened in the playoffs and in the years where they've had their best teams, their best players have not shown up. So how do you say, well, how's that Jerry's fault? And that's always the issue. Like, you can't say he's the worst GM in football, and then they have a record, and you go, well, I mean, the record doesn't really match somebody who's the worst GM in football. But he does these things, that affect the franchise. And the biggest thing he's done probably to affect the franchise, and just like now, you usurp the power of the head coach, and so that players know. Some of them know, okay, if I don't like this, let me go talk to Jerry and see if it really has to go down like this. Whereas you can't do that in most franchises.
Well, hey, can we talk about the head coach real quickly?
Jerry?
Yeah. Well, the guy who might be the head coach in name only, Brian Schottenheimer. From a football standpoint, Brian Schottenheimer's been in the NFL. He's coached like just 28 years now.
Right.
But this is his first head coaching job, obviously. And you talk about if you wanted to put a rookie head coach in as bad a situation as possible, take away the best player on his team, okay, at a position that you have to have any success on the eve of the season opening against the Super Bowl champions. I mean, talk about pulling the rug out from under your head coach. It's like, I mean, I know JJT, I think he said no more than 6 wins. Like, this thing could go south. Like, if depending on how bad the opener is, I mean, you could be looking at one of the worst seasons in this team's history.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm being serious. Like, because they want, see, the problem is they say, and he even talked about it yesterday, they want to play a certain style. We really want to run the ball and use play action to set up Dak to Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. But the problem is, if when you can't stop the run and their corners aren't any good and they don't have a pass rush, you're not going to be able to play like that because why?
You'll be
You're going to be
behind.
down 14-3
You're gonna be
in every
behind.
game.
Right.
You're down 10-0. You go, we're down 10-0. Our defense can't stop nobody. We got to score on this drive. We ain't got time to establish the run. And it becomes this cycle every single week. And that's how you end up 4-13,
Right.
3-14. And, when I say 6 wins, to me, that's the ceiling. And the schedule is difficult this year in terms of you playing the AFC West, you're playing the NFC North. You have, you don't have the AFC South on your schedule this year, where you can steal a couple wins against bad teams. You're playing good teams, and it's and Jerry dismissed it yesterday. I also think, and a lot of teams do this, like, well, the team just has to deal with it. Well, no, the team is made up of individuals, and individuals feel a certain way. Like the Packers walk in their locker room today, high-fiving and just, dog, we got a shot.
Right.
Cowboys guys walking in like, the hell we doing, man? And whether they have conversations about it or not, they know we're not better today than we were yesterday because they got us this old-ass defensive tackle who used to be good coming off the worst year of his career.
And he turns 30 in October.
Right.
Yeah, if not 31.
And then his shot.
Yeah.
His shot at Micah, when he says, well, we got to stop the run. We got to stop. And that, it's kind of like in the alternate universe in which we're all living now, where people could just say anything. Know, I mean, people just say anything. You just traded a 26-year-old superstar to Green Bay, and you spinning it like, well, we got to stop the run. In other words, kind of blaming Micah, and at the same time putting the pressure on this soon-to-be 30-year-old defensive tackle. So you're setting it up that if you lose, you say, well, listen, like you said, you got to perform, and Micah is your fault.
It was very Nico Harris, wasn't it? Defense wins championships, and like like defense is really important in the NFL. But Nico just talking about defense wins championship without conveniently mentioning that you have one of the best offensive players in his generation that just got you to the NBA Finals. Well, defense wins championships. It's like, get out of here with that, man. Like, come on, dude. Like,
it's going to be a poop show, man.
Yeah. Real quick, y'all. Let's talk about the Packers part of it real quick. We don't have a lot of time left, but Packers had one of the best statistical defenses in the league last year, and now they're adding the best pass rusher in the NFL, arguably. Does this change anything for you all as far as the Packers' perspective?
I mean, they are a legitimate contender. Edgerrin Cooper is one of the best young linebackers in the league. They got Rashawn Gary, one of the best young defensive tackles. They got a young quarterback. They coming off an 11-6 season. It's their time to make a move. They're all in, and we'll see. What injuries do, but from a talent standpoint, they're all in, and they're going to be in the hunt. And whether they get there or not, we'll see.
A little more. Go ahead, Jerry.
Yeah, well, I love the fact, just to piggyback on what JJT said, look, their best players are now in that 26 to 27 range. And when you have a young quarterback who is really good knocking on a lead, when you have a defense that now you got two guys off the edge who can bring it, one guy who's like you said, arguably the best in the game. The Packers' time is now, and they're going for it. What they said to their fan base yesterday is, okay, one player in the NFL, true, it's not like most teams are one player away, but this one player they added gives them a legitimate shot now to say we can go to Philadelphia in an NFC Championship game and be in that game. Or we can host Philadelphia in an NFC Championship game. Like the Packers are going for it, and look, that's what teams want. That's what fans of teams want.
Yeah, don't let Philadelphia screw around and lose to Dallas. But you asked a question about Green Bay. I'm thinking if I'm Jordan Love, I'm thinking I feel a little more pressure now. If I'm Jordan Love, because we've kind of plugged a huge hole defensively. And I don't know that Jordan Love has been given a pass I wouldn't go that far as a pass, but I do think there's a lot more pressure on him this year than there was, because Micah Parsons is his equivalent, well, more than his equivalent on defense. So yeah. I mean, I think you're right, JT. I mean, there's like a lot of excitement in Green Bay, justifiably, but I think there's a lot more pressure on Jordan Love. Is there any pressure on Dallas? I don't know. You guys tell me. Is there any pressure on is Jerry Jones feeling pressure today?
No, he owns the team. He don't feel no. He owns the team. He's a billionaire. He don't feel any pressure. That's why he can make these reckless moves. There's no pressure in Dallas because nobody expects anything of you. I would, like I said, I'd be shocked if they won more than 6 games.
And JJT, highest valuation, correct me if I'm wrong, of a sports franchise on the planet, right?
Yeah.
Jerry's sleeping well.
No, he's very well. He ain't thinking about this.
Right.
And he says, hey, it was a unanimous decision. Like, who's gonna tell you no, man? Please stop it.
Right.
Once you made it clear that this is the route you want to go, ain't nobody telling you no.
Hey, right. JJT, real quick, do you think Steven is all on board on this?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Steven hold the money like, I don't want no more of my trust fund spent. So yeah. Right. Steven is tighter than Jerry with $1.
Yeah. And business is good.
But before we go, I wanted to send out some thoughts and prayers to our brother Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears. I don't know what their offensive line situation is looking like. I haven't heard a ton of glowing remarks out of Bears camp. Saw a little bit of his preseason. He got it cooking a little bit at the end there. But when you're introducing Micah Parsons to your division in a critical season, I wish the best for our young brother. I want to see him be successful. Jay Reid, I know you're going to be covering him extensively this season and getting up close and personal. I hope they can get their line situation figured out because Michael Parsons might tear his head off.
Yeah, big year for Caleb Williams. Obviously, I mean, he's got to show a lot this year.
Yeah. And I haven't heard a lot of. I know we got to run, but I'm listening to all the comments from the new head coach in Chicago, and I'm not. Usually, coach speak trends to be, to be very optimistic. I don't hear him. He's been very kind of subtly critical of Caleb. So we'll see. I'm sure that's another That's another roundtable for another day.
All right, guys. Look, thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back sometime later next week, unless somebody else crazy gets traded. Jerry might mess around and trade Dak Prescott next, for all we know. But
what's what's the name could be coming to Dallas? Shador. What about Shador could be coming to Dallas. Garrett could be coming to.
Look, that's all I need.
Look, he said they need to get better on the run defense. Maybe Shador's the answer. Plug him in at defensive tackle. But yes, please, everyone, log on to Andscape.com. Check up our socials. Jason Reid's piece now is up on the Micah Parsons trade. Great stuff from him as always. And thanks for joining us, gentlemen. And we will see y'all soon.